Hi, I'm Farah Danish, your autism family coach. Welcome to my podcast, where I bring together experts from the educational, psychology, and medical communities to share insights on parenting and supporting individuals on the spectrum. My mission is to continuously learn and share the latest autism related news and strategies, empowering moms to take control of their child's autism journey. Today, we're diving into a topic that is so important for us as autism moms. We all have goals for our kids and ourselves, but sometimes we just feel physically and emotionally burnt out. It's like no matter how hard we try, we just can't find the energy to keep going. What we often overlook is how crucial it is to have our bodies in good shape to support our mental and emotional well being. When we're physically weak, it affects how we feel and how we show up for our autistic children. It's all connected. So, to help us understand this better, I'm thrilled to introduce my guest today, a functional medicine coach who specializes in helping moms like us achieve our health goals. He's here to share some valuable insights and tips on how we can take care of ourselves so we can be our best for our families. Please welcome Adnan.
Thank you, Farah. It's great to be here. I think we both have a fantastic, stuff that we've just talked about, and I'm really hoping that this information will serve, the people listening, and we can add value to the whole process. Thank you, Speed.
Coach a lot of mothers, and most of them, if not all, suffer from some sort of physical illness, predominantly backaches and arthritis, and a compromised gut. So I'm going to ask you certain questions where I'm going to have you answer and walk me through why this is happening, because we understand, and like I just mentioned, it's not just the mental exhaustion, it's also the emotional exhaustion, which takes a toll on a mom. When we talk about an autistic child's gut health being compromised, we ignore the autism mother's mood regulations, which stem from poor gut health. So, what role does a mother's gut health play in her own mood regulation? And how can she improve her own microbiome to support mental well being?
I think this is a very, really hits the target, this question, because you see, we live in a world where we are constantly in a state of giving, where we have to give to our kids, we have to give to our parents, we have to give to the work. So you're constantly in a state of giving, which if you don't have an internal mechanism of replenishing our physical, mental, emotional needs, we end up depleted. And what it looks like is if you're physically depleted, it manifests into disease because you're working out of nutritional deficiencies. You're not getting the energy you require to operate. Emotionally depleted means you're working with those mood swings. You're operating out of a frustrated state, or you're in a simply just burnt out state. So that internal mechanism has to be in place. And that is what I call when you look after yourself. I've always had this interesting analogy. You see, whenever you sit in the plane, when you're aboard a flight, they say you have to put on the oxygen mask onto yourself before helping others. Now, helping others could be a child, but you do good to the child if you're not helping yourself. If you're depriving yourself of oxygen, what good are you to your loved ones? And that is a beautiful analogy that I always use, that we've got to take care of ourselves. And the way to take care of ourselves is not to expect from the environment, although that could be, maybe this is a discussion for some other time, but the best strategy is to lower expectations from your environment and work on yourself, be it emotionally or physically.
And I think
Right?
that's one of the reasons why this expectation that we have, that we have to always give, which you just rightly said, it's a cultural thing that we are, as moms, automatically we're expected to give. Well, you can't give from a place of fatigue, you can't give from a place of brain fog. In Adnan, what nutrition deficiencies particularly, we talk about iron and B12, contribute to these symptoms?
So specifically speaking, when we're talking about energy, we're looking at gut health. We're looking at, first of all, we've got to see if you're having gut issues like IBS, if you're having a reflux, we call GERD as well. So the whole idea is to do two things. One is to make sure that your nutrient, the foods that you're eating, have a good nutrient profile, because a lot of people will equate uh, calories with nutrition, and they're two very different things. So a food could be calorie dense but nutritionally deprived, right?
Right,
And that is
right.
the dilemma of today's day and age. Everybody's got this caloric mindset where they think that if a food has quote unquote less calories, that it should be good for me. But what we don't understand, that because of low calories, it's also nutritionally deficient, which is leading to fatigue, which is leading to brain fog, which is leading to just, most of the symptoms that you and I are experiencing on a daily basis. So the first thing is to make sure that your food has sufficient nutrients. We'll talk about that. And the second thing is making sure that the body is in a state of digestibility, like to say it in another way, that your digestion or assimilation of food is optimized. Because at the end of the day, if your digestion is compromised, which is your gut, that's where digestion takes place, right? So if your body is not able to digest food, if there is some form of inflammation, then you could be eating the world's healthiest diet, but it wouldn't have
Ex-
any impact. I've had so many people, women particularly, come to me, and they've been taking IV injections for iron. They're
एक
low on.
एक मिनट
Yeah. So I was saying that I've had patients come to me, particularly women, and they've been taking IV injections for iron because they're anemic, right?
Hmm.
Despite IV injections, they're still anemic. What does it tell
Yeah.
you? It's not about the intake. I mean, you're getting additional form of iron, and not just from food, but you're getting injections for it, and yet your body's not digesting that iron. That means there is, in simple
Process.
words, some kind of a leakage. There is something that is happening, that your body is not absorbing that iron. So we need to look at the absorption, and we need to look at the source as well. So it has to be a two-pronged approach, right? So when it comes to food, we want to make sure that we meet, again, two requirements as far as food is. Number one, that it has to have sufficient amount of calories. You cannot be on a calorie deficient.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, you cannot be on a calorie deficient diet and expect to have energy or the nutrients your body needs, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing, as far as food is concerned, we call foods that are going to stabilize blood sugar. So foods that are going to give you energy for longer periods of time. Things like, so if I put both of them together, I'm talking about foods that are mainly coming in the form of red meat, right? Rather
Hmm.
than chicken, turkey, whatever your palate or whatever you're consuming in your household, you want to go towards red meat. Because, and I say that emphatically, out loudly, because the medical community has convinced us that there is that if you increase your intake of red meats, that you'll be leading into a heart disease situation, and that is
Yeah.
not true. That's
Oh,
not true at
really?
all.
That's
Yeah,
the
that is
first
not
time
true.
I'm hearing this. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
the,
I love red meat, and I'm always villainized for this, that you shouldn't be eating so
yeah,
much red meat at your age, and after 30 you should be careful about how much you. That
yeah.
is that's very interesting, Adnan.
Yeah, because you see, these foods are, they're providing cholesterol to the body, and again, there's confusion around cholesterol. I mean, if we were just to understand that every hormone in the human body, be it cortisol, be it estrogen, I mean, I don't want to go into the details. The raw material for every hormone is cholesterol. Yeah.
Fast.
So yeah, that's fine. So I was saying that the raw material, there's that misconception about cholesterol being the bad guy.
Hmm.
Whereas if we were to understand that all hormones being the messengers that act as messengers in the human body, they're all the raw material, all hormones is cholesterol. So how can something that is a raw material in our bodies be bad for us? So it's how the world is looking at it. And this whole thing, I mean, I don't want to go into details, but this whole fat is bad for you, cholesterol is bad for you, started in the 1960s. and this guy named Ansel Keys. He was also, if you Google his name, and now that obviously many decades later they've discovered that this was it was a mistake that we made. So coming back to the point, so you want to make sure that your food is has sufficient amount of calories, and number two, you want to make sure that these foods have blood sugar supporting. They have sustainable energy. How do you meet both these requirements? Is simple. You want to make sure that the first thing is that you don't skip meals. You see, when you start skipping meals, the body has about 4 to 6 hour window before it starts before it starts to go down, before it starts to require energy from the system. So if you're skipping meals, like in the case of intermittent fasting, fasting is trending. But the fine print for fasting is that it is not in my opinion, fasting is not a good idea. It is taxing your body. It is asking for energy. And because you're going from one meal to the other, you're doing what we call a time restricted eating that puts more pressure on the body, which leads to fatigue. Now, keeping the month of Ramadan aside, that is the 1 month of cleansing. But other than that, fasting is something that has to be taken with there's a lot of fine print to it. So you can't just read off the internet and start doing intermittent fasting. But we need to make sure that we're not skipping meals, and the ideal window or the ideal time between two meals has to be between 4 to 6 hours, right? So you want to make sure that you're having 3 meals, keeping it simple, and making sure that each meal has all the 3 macronutrients, keeping it very simple because, sometimes, and this is how social media is working these days, that you're always looking for something fancy. You're always looking for some hack. You're always looking for some really, so looking for some really interesting word that you haven't heard before, and you think, this is what was missing in my life, and this is what I need, and it's going to make everything better, right?
My world is going to
That's how it works. Yeah. So it's the simple stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I need to I don't know, I need to have flaxseed, or I need chia seeds, and although those are, they've become run of the mill, but there are lots of things that do not belong in our pantry. They're not been part of our pantry, but
Yeah.
we're thinking that something is missing. Although, there is always room for improvement. But coming back to the point, it's just that we've got to keep things simple. I always perfectionism is the enemy of progress, which is that,
Powerful.
and if you think about it, I have to remind myself as well, I'm not going to start something till everything looks perfect. But guess what? Nothing is perfect. In fact, most of your pursuits, everything, literally the stuff that you and I were talking about, our work, etc., it's been messy. The beginning is always messy. So you got to start somewhere and accept that it's going to be simple. It's going to be messy. You're going to make mistakes, right? So what I always do is, so there's that advice which is relating to nutrition and food, etc. And then there's the mindset. They both have to go side by side, because at the end of the day, you could be, again, eating the best foods, but if you don't have the right mindset, if you're constantly in survival mode, which is what we were talking about, right? So if you're in survival mode, there's a very less chance that those whatever changes you're trying to make are going to follow through. They will not become part of your habit system, because you're always in what we call fight or flight mode. So coming back to the point of nutrition, 3 meals, and each meal containing the 3 macros, which is carbohydrates. I know it is demonized. A lot of ladies have this perception that carbs are bad for me, which is, again, it's not true. The other macronutrient you require is protein, which is absolutely essential. In fact, I was reading a research about depression, how to treat depression naturally, and one of the neurotransmitters require amino acids, which is the end form of protein. So L-tryptophan, to be specific, is one of the amino acids which is used as a raw material for neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, and these are the hormones that make us happy. So in a sense, if you improve your intake of protein, dietary protein. You're making sure that you're providing your body the nutrients it needs to create or manufacture the happy hormones, right?
Wow.
And then the third macronutrient we require is dietary fats. Again, demonized, dietary fats. You want to look at all the polyunsaturated and even the saturated forms of fats, because they all have, without going into a lot of detail, they all have their importance. So, for example, something like uh,
I mean,
olive oil.
yeah, olive oil, we've known it's healthy, but for a long time, ghee, butter was considered to be really unhealthy. So they would encourage people to use margarine.
Yes.
और वो बाद में पता चला कि margarine
Yeah, yeah.
is
Trans
horrible.
fats. This is,
Yeah.
yeah, it is horrible. That's, you see, that's how, we have to understand that unfortunately the mainstream information is coming out of the US Department of Agriculture, which is actually funded by companies like Nestle, General Mills, McDonald's. It's all out in the open now. So, and so is FDA for that matter, the Food and Drug Administration. It comes down to commercialism, which is maybe a topic for some other time. So this is where it comes down to. So you want to make sure that you're having your dietary fats, and you could use even saturated fats, coconut oil, for example. It's fantastic. So these are actually brain boosting foods as well. So we were talking about mental fatigue. Now you want to give your body the nutrients that it needs. You have nuts, for example, right?
The big fat.
Walnuts. And the common understanding is because a walnut looks like the human brain, and it is a brain food, because it contains those dietary fats. It contains those nutrients that are required by the body, the omega-3 fatty acids, to be specific, anti-inflammatory substances. It is so good for the entire body, so good for lowering inflammation. So you have, on your
Okay.
anti-inflammatory foods. We're talking flaxseed, for example. It's packed with omega-3 fatty acids, a brilliant source of fiber. It's brain
Now,
food, it's gut food. Yeah,
what I want to ask is, okay, flaxseed is not something we generally use in Asian communities
right.
specifically. Would you be able
Hmm.
to give me some tips on if I were to use flaxseed, suppose for breakfast or at night before my child sleeps, how can I actually use it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would always add these things. There are two ways of having them. Either you have it as like a medicine. You take a tablespoon of flaxseed and you just gulp it down. That's one
Oh,
way, right?
with
Right?
water, you
That's
like
one way. Yeah.
okay.
That's one way. Or the other one is that, let's say you're having a bowl of, everybody likes a bowl of salad, like a little bit of salad. So you sprinkle flaxseed on it, right? So
Hmm.
you could have it that way. So you see, we have flaxseed. It comes in two forms. Either it'll be in seed form, or it'll be milled, which is the powder form. You
Yeah.
could even add it to your smoothie. Smoothies are great. You could have a fruit smoothie. You could have a vegetable smoothie, which is a bit of acquired taste. A protein smoothie. They're fantastic things. So I talk
Hmm.
about liquid nutrition when it comes to gut health, because for a great percentage of people, the solids is difficult for the body to digest, which leads to deficiencies, because liquids are easily assimilated. So you could have, let's say, a smoothie that has a fruit, and it has maybe some kind of I recommend usually pea protein, something that has literally, it's tasteless. So you could have a smoothie made out of almond milk or coconut water. You could have a bit of pea protein in it, maybe some fruit in it, and throw some flaxseed or some MCT oil or some nuts in it. So this becomes an entire meal because it has all the macros in it, and this is so filling. And you could add a little bit of honey to it, and so it tastes brilliant as well. So it's just that you don't have to have it on a daily basis. You see, there's that mindset that because I've heard of flaxseed, if we're talking about that, I have to have it on a daily basis. No, you don't. You could have it twice a week or thrice a week. Something is better than nothing, right? So you could have one day you could have your regular breakfast, and the other day you could have the smoothie, which by the way tastes great. You don't have to acquire that taste either. It's just that breaking out of that mindset and
Yeah,
understand. There's a quote that comes to mind, and this is by Steve Jobs. It was at the end of his life, and he said, "If you don't take food as medicine, then you will have to take your medicine as
that.
and this is if you think about it, this is exactly what's happening to us. That because we are, these food marketers, because they have understood the whole science about palatable foods that are addictive, right? So our taste buds have become desensitized. We have to have strong tastes. We need to have strong, we need to have a lot of sugar, or we need to have a lot of salt and all those additives. They've done the research. What
Yeah,
happens is that because
well,
of processed foods, your taste buds become desensitized, so you can't taste anything else. And this happens to the best of us. I mean, if you just let go of the strong flavors for a little while, and you see that your taste buds, they start picking up. You start getting the taste of a kiwi. Start getting the taste of an avocado. You start getting the taste of an apple. That's because you're moving from processed to unprocessed foods. But that takes time, right? You have to give yourself time. So one of the main things that I recommend is keeping things simple, straightforward. Having, like I just mentioned, your carbohydrates could be coming in the form of, if you chapati, right? So, and if we're talking gut issues, then we need to start exploring gluten-free flour, which is quite, and it's easily available. You can Google it, you'll have it delivered. The flour is easily available. It's just the mindset shift that has to
so you
take place,
also
right?
have what you call it basin chickpea, right? Chickpea
Yeah,
flour.
yeah, yeah. There you go. So that
You
is
know,
that is a gluten-free example, and like so many others that you can have, which is, so your carbs could be coming in that form. You could even be having rice, white rice, simple. Everybody knows white rice. We're all accustomed to having rice, and there is
so
that misconception.
when you talk
Yeah.
about eating white rice, is there like portion wise how much we should? Because white rice is what they say. Oh, that's just plain sugar. You might as well just eat something which has a lot of sugar if you're going to be consuming white rice. So women usually
No,
complain. Yeah.
that is not correct entirely. It is partly correct in the sense that certain foods have blood sugar spiking properties, like potato.